Guys, you follow UFC at all?
Uh-huh.
Whenever people mention soil samples, it's like, sounds like something a nerd or a virgin would do. He's like, nothing wrong with being a nerd or a virgin. The HUNTR Podcast is brought to you by Deer Grow.
Man, it's almost food plot season, Jared, and Deer Grow is one of those products that has really changed the way that we plant food plots and the success we've seen from them.
No doubt. I've been, trying to plant food plots my entire whitetail hunting career, which is a little shorter than yours. But the minute that I started, or that I realized that I could get Deer Grow back into some of these remote plots where I couldn't get lime or fertilizer, especially in the 50-pound bag, format. Mm-hmm. So everything was changed. I could get into these spots moving forward with a backpack sprayer, and that's since escalated to these 40 or 60 gallon sprayers, and we're doing upwards of 5 to 10 acre food plots just with Deer Grow and having phenomenal success.
Yeah, and I mean, with the price of fertilizer, lime, diesel, everything this year, I mean, what better way to get in there and grow a successful food plot at about a third of the cost? Check out Deer Grow at deergrow.com. And we're back.
Hey,
HUNTR Podcast, episode 114. 114.
Almost Valentine's Day, boys.
Yeah, today
it is. What's dropping it?
Today's the 13th. Yes, if you're listening to this, it's 14th. We're like on a tight turnaround here.
It's like Happy V Day. We're like,
what?
What
The hell? Your V
So
card?
if you haven't got something yet for your significant other,
You're fucked.
you should do that now.
Oh, yeah.
do that.
Yeah, it is literally Valentine's evening if you're listening to this, so you best whip something together pretty quick.
Just like get takeout or something. I don't do gifts anymore for Valentine's Day. I'll get I'll get sushi. I'll bring home. And
You don't do flowers?
if I pass a flower place, then maybe I'll do.
See,
flowers.
that's my safeguard. Is a week or two before I'm like, fuck, Valentine's Day's coming up. I order flowers. I don't have to do anything. They just show up.
Mm-hmm.
And then if I forget or I'm busy, I'm like, got my ass covered. In fact,
I could do flowers.
Mine are coming today on the 13th. So I did it a day early because then tomorrow's all,
Yeah. Hopefully somebody will be out on the street selling flowers.
Probably.
Those would be my go-to.
Yeah. Got a whole bunch of dead dandelions. Yeah, I'll take those.
Pick some on the side of the road. I have definitely done that.
Yeah. Did you just get those from the cemetery? No. All right, I'll take them. So yeah.
It's just the worst time of the year to have a holiday. It's like we just had the holidays, and now I'm trying to spring another one on me. I'm in work mode.
Trying
to
it's just
keep my head
Day,
afloat.
One day, make sure they know
it's fallen off. It used to be a big deal. People were like, well, you better have a life-size bear, or you better have you got to pull out all the stops.
Mm-hmm. I don't remember what it was like in Valentine's Day in high school. You remember what it was like in high school?
I remember what it was like as a kid. Dude, one time we came home from school. I was like, I don't know, 7 years old or something.
Mm-hmm.
My sisters and I walked home from school, came in the basement, and there was all these snacks laid out and movies. It was Lion King 1.5, and a note that was like, hey,
Happy
enjoy
Day.
your night in the basement. Don't come upstairs.
Do not come upstairs.
The paper Valentines. You to and from. You do that for your whole class.
Oh yeah. Well, dude, we just made
and nothing for Gretchen Wieners.
We just made 2 Valentine's Day boxes for their thing. I guess it was on Friday or something, but
that was Valentine's Day that you did the boxes for, huh?
Yeah. So Carter had a Harry Potter one, and Harlan had some alligator or something like that, and
I remember that. I made a pretty epic SpongeBob Valentine's Day box.
Very nice.
Yeah, the shape, the geometry worked out good on that.
Pretty sure mine was just a Nike box with a cut in it.
Same.
Yeah.
Funny. So anyways, Valentine's Day.
Valentine's Day.
Dude,
which means it's shed season too.
Kinda. Yeah, I was gonna mention
kind
that.
Of.
I think some of them there was false alarm at that Christmas.
Oh yeah.
Cold front. It seemed they're going.
Seemed like a lot of mature bucks through.
I wouldn't even say a lot. I think 75% of ours are still holding.
Really?
Dad sent me a video of a bachelor group the other day of it was $5.
I've got a bunch.
All of them were holding. One had one half gone.
Really? See, I've
2
got
and 3-year-old bucks.
I haven't seen a rack buck in Ohio in 2 weeks probably.
Really? My cameras are off, so I'm not
my Kentucky one though, I've got 2 3-year-olds for sure still holding. They were in front of the camera last night. So yeah, I mean they haven't.
Next 2 weeks probably. March 1st.
Yeah.
Can't go wrong with a March walk. There's some that have been out there, like you said, in January, but
yeah, I mean I'm
that's
already
what it
thinking
is.
about work and habitat and
Yeah.
Whatever else. I had a good conversation with a guy the other day. I don't know where we were. It's on like one of the native habitat forums or something, but he used the Kentucky state biologist in our area where my new farm is, and said the guy came out, wrote him a really good like management plan for the timber and TSI and stuff, got him equip dollars, and then also put him in contact with a contractor whose team goes out and like does the TSI for you.
Nice.
So like if you're strapped for time, which I am, like I want to go out and do it, but I don't have time, especially on like a large scale, like 40 acres or 50 acres.
It's a lot of work.
Basically, you're getting the equip dollars, and it's checks cut right to the contractor to go out and implement. Yeah. And apparently in Kentucky, I can't burn either. You have to have a burn boss with you. They're pretty serious, like $5,000 fines or something.
Yeah.
That's intense, man. If I flick a cig and it just like lights up, I don't know, but
I'm trying to like not fly under the radar because obviously you put off a lot of smoke. But like, so we're burning on the 25th. I'm gonna call just the local fire department. Who I used to know the guy. It was Brad who ran the farm.
Yep.
So I'm gonna call down there and just be like, hey, just heads up.
On notice.
We're burning. We got like 10, 15 guys. Just heads up, and hopefully he's not like.
Are you playing the weather a little bit?
We're gonna try.
Okay. Yeah, because I mean, if it's like blowing 30, you're not gonna be burning.
No. Yeah. I mean, I'm hoping for just like, I don't know, not too wet, not too dry, not too windy.
That would be it. Those are the conditions.
Yeah. We've got like mega breaks in.
Sure.
So we'll just pick the smallest one, start slow.
Yep. Yeah, because it's 30 acres.
I think.
And you've got gridded.
Oh, yeah. There's like 10 or 15 different blocks.
So 2
biggest
to
one's
4
5
acres. 5 acres.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that'll be, I mean, again, out of the gate, not a big deal. But
you going to try to come for that?
Yeah.
I'm not trying to pressure you. I'm just saying 25th.
Yeah.
If you can make it. I know you're busy.
Yeah, I should be able to. I'm around.
25th or 26th. 25th is a Saturday. So it'd be either 25th or 26th.
Yep.
Weather dependent.
And then I think, as in the future, as you burn those quadrants out, that's when it's going to really make a big difference.
Yeah.
Being able to do it at, keep these standing, burn this back, set this back.
Yeah. I'm excited to see kind of what it does.
Yeah. So I'm thinking I've kind of re-honed my strategy a little bit on I'm going to still do a bunch of switch on mine, but I think I'm going to build in blocks of old field inside the switch for browse, try to create more edge. So like hope they bed on that switch edge.
You want to talk a little bit about your Kentucky layout? You sent it to me briefly. I haven't had time to really analyze it, but so you've got what, 50-ish acres that you're planning on planting in either
50,
food?
Yeah, 45 to 50. It's so weird, like and maybe it's just that county, and I'm sure other people have that. Like I rely on things like, well, from real estate we use MapRight, or HuntStand or on. It doesn't matter, whatever you use. And like I'll go in and map something and like clearly the acreage is not correct. Like, and so I went out and I walked some of these and it's off by a lot. Like I'll have one area, it'll say, this area is 4 acres. And I went out and like walked it and it's like 7.5. And I guess it's the terrain and stuff maybe.
Probably has a lot to do with it.
They're just like overlaying it. And if it's not flat, like that's the issue. I don't know.
Sure.
So yeah, I've got about 45. The front part of the farm where I kind of come in and park is all going to be cover. So I've got 6 or 7 acres of switch intermixed with some old field in that. Mainly the switch is there from a screening standpoint. Just so that I can park, I can get in and, walk or ride the Cherovi or whatever. There's a road.
That's right where like the house is at, right?
That's where the barns are.
The barns, where there's activity, which is good because, that's not going to throw anybody off.
No, and there's a field that unfortunately, I think we talked about access in the last podcast. There's a field that's a really nice 1 acre field that I get a lot of good bucks on at, and I've got a lot of good bucks on camera there, and I'm going to have to abandon it. Like I'm not going to manage it.
Can we throw it up here?
So Nick, get down in this, like the bottom edge here. Like right where that 12, that kind of white number circled in the yellow. Right there. Yep. Zoom in on that.
So it's an oddly shaped piece too.
It is. And this is the main farm. Yeah, this other stuff is kind of property lines to be determined.
Dude, how cool. Are you jacked about this farm?
Super.
That's a big farm.
Yeah. And I mean, I've seen some really good deer for like, there's no food on this thing at all. So, okay. So Nick, where that triangle is right up above your cursor here. Yeah, in the middle. So those are the 3 barns. This is where I would come into the property. I'm going to sell this piece across the road to the neighbor.
Okay.
I don't need it. It's and it's separate from the main farm, so it'll get me
He's
some
like,
of my money
you know
back.
that piece you sold me right off the road, shot this 200-incher.
Probably, yeah. So parking will be like right here at these barns. This little kind of triangle cut to the north here is going to be.
Has this changed much from the drawing you sent me?
What do you mean?
You sent a drawing of everything.
Nope, this is exactly it.
Okay. Do you have that?
In a picture? Maybe. Yeah, I'll send it today.
Might help me visualize it.
So that north field I'm going to abandon because I'm projecting westerly or south winds, and if I'm walking in on that access road right in the middle, like it's just not going to work.
You're going to abandon it?
I'm just not going to do anything. I'm not going to plan it. I'm not going to put switch in it. I'm not going to put food in it.
Is it super visible from the road too?
Not too much, but that's where I've got some dog issues I got to take care of.
Okay.
I mean, humanely to the society for dogs.
Can you do that? Can you pick them up and take them in?
I don't know, man. I'm a dog lover for sure, as I know you are as well. I just can't
have them running deer.
I've got zero tolerance for it.
Yeah.
They're strays?
No, they're probably
they're out
neighbors.
of the trailer to the north. That's the other one. So anyways, all this stuff to the south, and you can see like right in the middle there on the southern
I'm sorry to
field.
interrupt you. Are these barns usable? Can you store stuff in there?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, the one on the furthest left is a good metal barn. The one in the middle is just an overhang open barn where they put hay.
Yep.
And then the one up front is like an old tobacco barn.
Nice.
Yep. So that metal barn's really nice because I can close that. I can throw a lock on it. I mean, it's in good shape still.
Nice.
So like temporary tractor storage, tree stands, etc. They'll be in there. And I'm going to put a gate up front as well.
How big is that field that you're going to abandon there?
1.5 acres. Yep. And right where this pinch is, I've got a camera and there's a giant scrape. Every one of the bucks I have got in the past year on that coming out of this deep ravine, right?
Yeah.
So it's a deep ravine bottom and heading down to the south.
Nice.
Nick, you want to try to pull that picture up over top of this too, just to see if that works? So yeah, so where I say fallow up there, basically I'm abandoning it to the wind.
Dogs.
Indication, very clear. So these bottoms where it's got switch, you can see that's about 4 acres of switch down there. I'm going to intermix some fallow field into that switch. So it's purely for screen.
Why fallow field over like clover?
Inside of the switch?
Or yeah.
Because
little pockets.
I want bedding as well. And I don't think, not that the deer aren't going to bed in switch, but a monoculture of switch with some clover versus like browse. Like I want browse in there, especially for a lot of these deer use that switch in that late season.
What do you think about, what if you go in and plant that switch and immediately after go in and fall a bunch of the trees on the edge out into it?
Sure. Yeah, that would definitely do
feather
it.
the edge real hard.
Yeah, so because I own this little bottom kind of teardrop of timber, there's a lot of good bucks on in there.
I would think so, dude. I bet
oaks.
there's deer bedding right in that.
Well, this is the main ditch that runs north and south here, and then there's a big drop off into this big timber bottom over here.
Yep.
So yeah, I mean, definitely some options there. The one thing is right above where it says switch in 4 acres, there's actually, they did leave a piece. It's not big, but 1/10 of an acre that is like fallow, and it's just thick, nasty briars. It's like a rabbit sanctuary.
Yep.
So as you're going to the west, obviously switch around the road, and then I'm going to have a box blind right at the top of that knob.
I see you.
Yep, and there's actually that's the only structure on most of the property. There's actually water and electric and stuff there. So eventually I may change that up and put like a metal building or something there. But for now, that's just going to be a box blind point. Brassica, 1 acre, maybe clover. That's an old riding arena where that clover is. So I don't know if I'm actually going to plant it or it's just sand. Okay. So it might not grow. Switch to the south of that, intermix with something. cereal grains at the far bottom, and that's so that I can come off of that top and drop in on like a south or southwest wind into a tree stand that would overlook that cereal grains on any deer running that bottom.
Jump back to map right real quick, Nick.
Mm-hmm.
So you can see where that knob is.
It's a big drainage. So, dude, I think okay, see, that helps. That makes sense. Dude, I bet that there's a lot of bedding happening in that bottom there. You see where the ravine comes up, where you're saying all
like
that
on the property line?
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. I was down in there the other day. I mean, it's all tore up. Rubs. There's some cedars down in there. I think it's pretty open timber though.
Is it?
But it's getting. I think it's because they must have cut some timber out of there in like 5-10 years ago, and so it's starting to get a thick understory.
I think you're gonna struggle to hunt that bottom cereal grain field.
I will.
Just because that prevailing wind is going to take it. That's like where the Ramsey Road is at. It's that giant bowl, and I can't hunt anywhere to the west of it because it gets swept up in there, and that's where they all bed.
It's almost going to be. And again,
I like your box blind knob up there.
Yep. It's the reason it's in there is I do, and it's not common, but because of the way that wind sits, is if I get a swirl, it's going to come in from the west and it's going to swirl back to the east, and I could get away with it there.
Look at that saddle too, man. That's right where you're saying that scrape was at. I bet you'd be better off, even though it's close to your barns and stuff, hunting that saddle.
That pinch.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, there's a logging road that kind of cuts around that I will have a stand in there that I could drop down in on a, anything west, northwest especially.
Yeah. Your box blind set up some money though, because they'll be either in this bottom or on this leeward ridge.
And again,
they'll come right
as soon as they come out of that thick bottom, I mean, there'll be a road there obviously, but then it's switch. And like it's very hard to visualize. They have to come up over that knob to get into the first brassica field.
I like it.
The HUNTR Podcast is brought to you by Stealthcam.
Dude, where would we be without our cell cams?
I would definitely be divorced at this point.
Yeah, I hear that.
I mean, the fact is I spent more time checking cameras than I actually did hunting prior to cell cameras. Now at least my wife can enjoy me being in the comfort of my own home, buried in my phone checking those pictures.
Yeah, 100%. And dude, when it comes to trail cameras and definitely cell cameras, reliability is, I think, the number one thing that we're looking for. Stealthcam just has a long reputation of reliable cameras, and ultimately that is the most important thing to us. They have to work.
In terms of reliability, there's not a better camera on the market than Stealthcam, whether you're talking about the Fusion X, the Reactor, or the DS4K Transmit. And most of them are under $200.
Stealthcam.com. Check them out.
I'll
stop making you do that.
You can see where, if you look directly kind of northeast of that box blind, you can see an arrow coming up out of there. There's just a highway that comes right up out of that bottom over that top, pours right out.
Love it.
So kind of finishing this open field piece, you can see I've got 3, which is actually a little more.
Don't overlook this.
What's that?
That section of timber, is this your line that cuts down?
Yep, straight on the bottom. There's a creek on that bottom.
I bet there's...
Oh, dude, it's loaded. I mean, I walked, Carter and I dropped down in there, cut across. I mean, it's all, and there's actually some really nice white oak in that little group there.
Awesome.
So if you go down further to the southwest, you've got this top is going to be standing corn, which will give me a screen coming in. Bottom's going to be switcher fallow. It's about 2.5 acres, mainly from a wind standpoint. That's why that's down there. There's a little section of trees. It's like a little island here at the end. And I'm going to put either a tower or a blind in that, box blind in that. And then I'm going to have an acre beans at the edge here at the back. And that's mainly for southwest winds, early season, green beans, kill velvet buck.
I'm with you.
And then I'm also going to have a tree stand probably at the corner of the beans and the corn so that I could slip into that, more later in the season, but I could get away with that on the southwest wind.
So that's 3 acres of corn, 1 acre of beans.
Correct. Yep. 2 acres of fallow on the bottom or switch. And that's a hillside that comes down. Not steep, but it's a gradual down. So if I'm up on that top, anything in that bottom can't see me because it's kind of up over the knob.
Yeah. Well, and you just expect they're going to come up that ditch.
Yep. 100%.
Yeah.
Yep. So that's kind of that part. What's interesting is the just to the northwest of this is this is a significant block of timber with two drainages in it. These two drainages meet down here in the bottom. And I mean, that thing is so tore up. What's so weird is I got cameras in here. Well, they didn't work until after we got back from Kansas. Because remember, I put cameras in and that one wasn't working before we left.
Yeah, because your service is sketchy down here.
Yeah.
Right?
So after we came back, I got cameras in. So it was like end of November, early December before I was running cameras on this property. And I mean, the amount of buck sign that's in here, where it's got this kind of deer movement here in the middle of our screen, that's a knob. And like all around it is just a big bottom, and that's a white oak knob.
Yep.
And I mean, there's some giant rubs on there. And so you can see up on the north of that, I'm going to have corn.
Dude, you're going to get a taste of like what my farm hunts like with this.
I know.
Because they're bedding on those leeward ridges. They're going to drop into that knob. That's where your sign's going to be. And you're going to have to be far enough away, that they can't see you get in.
Yeah. Which is why box blinds are going to be a big strategy of this. I'm going to have some tree stands placed, but yeah, I mean, and again, we talked about it last podcast. Like, I usually have big timber, no openings. Like, the biggest or the most amount of tillable I have is on the Ohio place, which is 8 acres of 130. I've got 45, 50 acres of open.
It's going to change the game for you, dude. You're going to kill some big bucks here, I think.
The nice thing is this is centered. Like, what we're looking at, this whole thing is the top of the ridge, right? All of this is going down off the ridge to any different direction. So you're playing the food and and eventually you're going to figure out some strategies because you're going to want to cut off some of these deer from where they're bedding and not just hunt the food, but you got to just do it carefully. So the one thing that I'm going to really try this year too is you never know how switch is going to do in the first year. It could be 12 inches, could be 4 feet. Like it just depends on soil quality, when you get it in, if the seed germinates really well. So anywhere that you see corn rows on the side of that 2 1/4 brassica field in the middle, that's also going to have a strip or several strips of switch. So that I'm using the corn this year as my screen. I'm hoping by next year, year 2, the switch becomes my screen and I don't have to plant corn as my screening anymore. But I'm just trying to create better screening in year 1, anticipating that the switch isn't going to provide me enough screening. Yeah. So 2.5 acre standing corn, 2 1/4 acre brassica plot, box blind again on that knob, coming in off of that logging road, straight up through the corn. I'm going to cut a row through that corn, right up into that box blind sitting up on that knob. And then I've also got kind of around the edge there, I'm going to have corn rows, and there's a water hole at the bottom of that. And I'm going to have a tree stand right over top of that water hole trying to catch those deer.
Where is it?
Right.
Is it already there? Yep. Interesting.
Yep. It's like it's ephemeral. It's like
it'll be an awesome
there and gone, and when it's dry, it's not there. When it's wet, it's there.
It'd be a good camera place.
Yep.
Camera spot.
Having those come out. I almost planted that in beans for early season, but based on that going to be likely southwest winds, I just didn't feel confident getting in there based on where those deer from a leeward ridge way are going to be bedded and stuff.
Yeah, that's tough, dude.
Yeah, I didn't like it. But you can see over here, so this one up here, that one right there is a big pond. That is a pond. So I'm going to have corn on that side, mainly as screening. You can see where my switch is going to come in to guard me. I'm going to put up, I've got one of those quad pods for muddy, like a tower blind. I'll put that right on the corner where that pond is. There's almost like a dam that the deer walk over, and then I'm going to have standing beans right on that other side. And then there's a fence gap to the west of that where I'm going to have another box blind in between two 2-acre bean fields.
Yeah.
And they've already been coming across through that a lot. But there's the big one in the back. That's the one you and I always question is what happens with a 5-acre plus brassica field. And there it'll be right there. And you can see I've kind of have to stage some corn and switch to screen myself in. And I won't go any further back, like in the middle back here. But this is big timber to the west, and then that goes into the national forest.
Yep.
and some clover up on the top. I got a couple
of
places.
It,
yeah, I mean, it's trial and error, right? I mean, ultimately, like when you lay out a piece of property, like people ask, a lot of people have been writing us in because we talk about this all the time. You and I obviously, like I take this map very serious. There's like shitload of work here, in an intimidating amount. And the reality is there's a good chance not everything on this map gets put into play this year, just from a time standpoint, weather, whatever.
Sure.
But in the past, I've never really had strategies. Like I've talked about what I've wanted to do, and I want to do this, and I think this, and I want to do that. But ultimately, if you don't have strategies like laid out, like this is my goal this year, you're not going to be able to accomplish it. Nick, can you go back to the terrain map one more time? I showed Jared a couple of things here and talk about some of the situations of why.
I love the fact that you have this access on the eastern side of all of the feeding, and the fact that there's
a huge bottom there,
and the fact that there's north and south facing terrain on the western sides. Like I like it.
Go ahead and zoom. Okay, so what you can see like here on the north, you see these giant ditches coming up out of this ravine, right? Every time where those come in, right, it's clearly spots where deer are coming up to food, right? So play yourself off of that and understand how those deer move. And then if you look on this southern edge of things, you can clearly see again where these big ditches are coming out, or where there's an inside corner potentially on some of these things, like this one right here. This is a field edge. And you've got this inside corner right there.
Yep.
And so you have to look at it from, and I almost looked at the topography as much as the open field of, okay, if I plant these, where are these deer coming? And to the last conversation, and so I'll do some clarity because some people got not confused, but they didn't know. When we talk about leeward ridge, we're talking about the face of the ridge that's basically down, like away from the wind.
Opposite the prevailing.
Correct.
wind.
So when you start to look at these things, this is where it comes back to food, bedding, where things are. Like I don't have a great idea of where deer are bedding on this farm, mainly because there's a lot of cover. I'm going to try to establish some significant stuff, but I mean, you can see, look at the drop here. That goes from like over 1,200 feet up at the top to 1,000. I mean, that's a cliff. Like literally it's a cliff line. But where these gradual increases come up, that's the only place these deer can come up out of the bottom. They're not going to climb that cliff, right? They're going to take this ease of drainage up into those food aspects. And when you know that and you start to get patterns, now you can figure out your plan of attack of, can I get in here on a westerly wind? These deer are bedded on this leeward side, and they're going to try to come up with that wind at their nose before they cut up over that corner. How do you approach these different aspects? Or clearly, like you can see the two knobs there. That's the two knobs I have a box blind on, right? For a reason.
Yep.
So, and you can see where the water is too on some of these things. So, it really is a matter of, I almost designed this, and I normally don't do this because I don't have openings. I don't have, a variety of openings to pick from. I designed this based on access first. How do I get in? How do I get in safely? Where am I going to put my screening? And then from that, understanding early seasons are usually going to be south or southwest winds for beans, late season west or northwest winds on a cold front. Think about those different wind conditions when you're saying, well, where am I going to put my beans for green beans early in the season? Well, I want to be able to hunt that on a south or southwest wind. That's likely what we're going to have. Whereas my brassica, I'm usually hunting that on a cold front. That's going to be a westerly, northwest, or even northerly wind. Not saying that you're not going to hunt on a southwest wind day, because if it's the rut, you probably will. But you want to set these up for the days that you think you're going to try to target and hunt.
Go ahead and kick that back to the Google map, Nick. I think one of the more challenging parts will be getting out. I think it seems like you've tried to give some structure along the road there to help with that.
And even like this middle part here, there's a road on this side towards us, but the road that I'm going to use is actually an old logging road it's almost on the downhill side of it. So I'd almost be walking underneath them out. And that can go clear out to the barns.
Your Terevi's going to be the trick with that.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, and again, it's screening and it's live and learn. That's why like anything close up, it's all either switch or it's standing corn. Mm-hmm. Now, again, deer are going to be in that standing corn potentially, but I'm hoping I can get clear of that without really spooking them versus going along a bean field or a brassica field or something where I'm very, very visible.
Yeah, sure.
But yeah, I mean, just like any places, getting out is going to be key. But I think based on cover and where things are standing, it'll be fairly clean. Like when I'm in the back here, I mean, it's a lot of ground to cover to get out, but it's screened the whole way. And inevitably you're going to bump some deer. It's just, get out as clean as possible.
I love it, dude. I think it makes a ton of sense.
Yeah.
Can you zoom out a little bit, Nick?
Mm-hmm.
And have you walked this whole farm yet?
Yep. So not all of that stuff to the northwest I own. I own to this Clifton Road, basically.
Okay.
That part over here, that is national forest land.
Okay.
So I own that part. I own that's a big drainage that goes up, which is kind of the shape of a P.
I was going to say like a pipe.
Yeah.
But yeah. Right here from the barns, if you go straight north up that line, what's that flat look like at that inside corner or that?
Straight north of it?
Yeah.
It's pretty flat, goes out to about an acre opening, which I can get in from the east. There's a road right there. I can park there and come in on the east. Yeah, it's nice. That's one of, again, a few drain. There's actually right here is a really big drainage that comes out that deer are using. And here's the other kind of not unfortunate part, but just we're playing things out here is this isn't reflective of all the property. So I actually have property down here. About 25 or 30 acres down that way.
What a weird property line.
Yeah, it's cliff lines. So a lot of them are following cliff lines. That's how they did it back in the day from a property line. There is a 40-acre chunk in between that piece and my southern piece here that I will probably try to purchase at some point, just from a standpoint. But
yeah, because what do you do with that northern piece? Like, just other than let it be.
I can come in from the north, like on a south wind. I can come in and park right here. There's a parking right there.
Yeah.
This is a
well, that northeastern piece is what I mean.
Oh, yeah, I know. I'm losing. I need to get a right-of-way into it from one of these neighbors up there.
Yeah.
Because I need a right-of-way to tuck in on that back because this is a big knob here.
Yeah.
Right there. And that's a giant valley that goes up.
Heck yeah, man.
So, and again, when we talk about earlier, like, this Kentucky biologist is going to come out mainly to write me a forest plan. I got to get an equip and stuff. But like a lot of this stuff on the south part, TSI is easy, but this big wood stuff is freaking huge.
Now that you're zoomed out on it, I can see a little better. It looks like smack dab in the middle of this northwestern piece here, there's probably a giant bedding knob all along that ridge there. I bet you see a ton of activity coming off of there with westerly winds and up into your destination food source there. If you could get clear out to the very end and in between it, I'll bet there's
an old cabin at the end buried in those woods as well, which is kind of a cool thing. I don't know what the hell to do with it, but it's like a box blind. Yep.
Right there.
Yep. That's where that cabin's at. And it's a big bottom in there.
Can you hunt out of it?
Yep.
Seem like it's in the spot.
Yeah, I mean, I can see that corner of that whole piece of field there.
Cool.
So yeah, I mean, it's probably more of a gun spot than a bow spot, but yeah. So I mean, it's again, how you set it up and what works. Like the switch was the stuff that I'm dropping at least 20. I did the math. It's like 27 acres of food. That doesn't really count like some of the corn screening for this year.
Yeah.
So, call it 30 acres of food. And then I'm talking 15 acres of bedding, which was going to be all switch. Now will be a match of switch and old field. And again, everything around me is pasture. There are no ag plantings around me.
Yep.
At all. So I would assume this thing starts being a big magnet for deer. And it's trial and error.
A lot to explore there.
Yeah, trial and error. I like the access. I I feel good about the spots. I'd like to create some better thick bedding in some of these areas. This big valley, like kind of the main chunk of the property there, is like not great timber quality, and it's just giant. Like, I mean, you look at this thing and it's just an enormous ravine with like, you know, hemlock down the bottom. And so that's a spot where I'd love to have like a pretty hard timber cut occur. Mm-hmm. Because if you create that as bedding, you know, that's kind of that entire piece from a south or even a west, that's all leeward ridge on the close side that they'll work up or down to then come up into those plots.
How far is this from here?
4.5 hours.
Where are you going to stay when you go down there?
My cabin's only 8 miles.
That's right.
Yep. I'm only 8 miles away from it.
It's awesome.
So, yeah, I mean, a lot of work. I mean, we spent some time out there the other day just kind of walking around and seeing. I mean, I was impressed with a lot of the buck sign. Again, and we didn't really there's some good oaks on this, some good reds and whites on this, and we didn't have hardly any acorns this year for like the second year in a row. So, I mean, there literally, besides browse, was no real food on this.
Can you hunt that national forest?
Yep.
You can.
Mm-hmm. Not nobody. A lot of people don't really hunt this. There's another piece of national forest that's 60 acres up to the north that borders that pipe-looking piece. Mm-hmm. They're just hard to access. Like this is a long, windy gravel road, and it dead ends right there. And so, like, not many people come by, and this is nasty terrain. You know, but that's where a lot of the strategy in this area, because it's big woods, is if you can pull these bucks off of these big pieces of national forest, I mean, you're talking about some significant age class opportunity. Now, you know, you may pull in some gnarly, you know, giant 8 points that don't score more than 130, but I have seen quite a few bucks in this area, even younger ones, in that 9 and 10 point class range. Like they seem to be. I have got, just like any place, I've got 8 points too, but I saw a lot of bucks that were 9 and 10s this year in late November, early December. So, you know, not trying to harp on the side of genetics, but, you know, there are properties that have better antler point traits than others. That's just how it is. Yes, most of your deer are going to be 8 points at maturity, but if your property produces more 9s and 10s, and as long as you don't high grade that, you're going to continue to produce more 9s and 10s.
So are you doing any clover?
Yes. As of right now, maybe that half acre here where the old riding arena is. Mm-hmm. But I'm going to do an acre, kind of that back little piece of the field that like sticks out by itself. That's going to be an acre of clover back there. I'll have that screened, and I'll have a blind or a quad pod overlooking that and the brassicas. And that'll be, I'm going to get those two in pretty soon. Probably the same time I come in and do my switch and stuff, I'll put those clover pieces in. The HUNTR Podcast is brought to you by Hoyt Archery.
Dude, where would we be without our Hoyt bows?
Probably shooting crossbows.
or a Matthews, yeah.
One and the same.
Yeah.
But in all seriousness, we love being Hoyt guys because you stand out. When you're in this room full of other people that shoot these other types of bows, I feel like the Hoyt guys just stick out.
Dude, it's just a legit bow. I mean, especially that carbon riser, man. I mean, I know that they've got several other aluminum lines as well, but for me, I'm shooting that RX5 in the carbon model. They've since come out with the RX7, and I can't tell you how much I love being a Hoyt guy amongst a sea full of Matthews guys. So we're out there, I think, proving them wrong, shooting 80 pounds and killing stuff.
Hey, man, if you want to get serious, get Hoyt. Okay. So strategy. So I guess a couple things to start off. We'll tie this a little bit into kind of some of our last year I bought a farm talks, but when I bought my Ohio farm, I got a 2-wheel drive 52 horse Kubota with it. Which is great to have because it was a bigger loader than my other Kubota, so I could actually lift and move my box blinds around. That said, 2-wheel drive doesn't do me shit where I'm at. I would bury that thing in a heartbeat. And I had a L2501, which I loved, but moving box blinds and stuff, loader maxed out, hydraulics were ready to like blow. So going into this year, even before this farm, my goal was to sell both of those tractors to upgrade to either a 39 or a 47 horse Kubota. And so I got, I sold a tiller and that, or no, let me take that back. Sold just the 2-wheel drive tractor to the dealer that I bought my Kubota for and got $12,000 for it, which maybe it's worth more in some states, but in Pennsylvania, it's not. I tried to sell it on Facebook Marketplace, didn't work. And then I sold the L2501, a 5-foot disc, a grading scraper, and an old tiller for $19,500 cash. So that was most of the money I needed for my new, I bought a 4701, so 47 horse Kubota, which I got a few weeks ago. So that was number one, moving box blinds, bigger tractor, ag tires for dealing with some of this and, a little loose, muddier soil. This is all silty soil, so it's good, but loose. So once I got this farm and I started thinking about the switch and beans and corn, and we've talked about this, is, how do you plant it? You could go out there and disc it all and then use a seeder or broadcast. First of all, that doesn't work well on corn. Works okay on beans. I have no problem with that. On corn, it does not work well. So I've been doing a bunch of research, and I am purchasing a Tar River drill. So it's a 7-foot, 3-point drill, 1,400 pounds, which is light for a drill, for a no-till drill. 7.5-inch spacing on the seed cups, big box for beans, corn, small box for clover, brassica. Also can do switch in the big box. Or small box. I think you can do it either. So I'm buying that. It does have a weight shelf on it in the front, which I'll probably put a couple of quick-rete sacks on it. So that will give me an extra 240 pounds on the front to push those first kind of wheels down in to really disc in. And then it also has a shelf in the back where I'm looking at buying like a long cylindrical sprayer to mount to do my deer grow directly behind it. So literally I'm one pass, I'm no-tilling beans or corn or switch, and I'm plot starting right behind it at the same time. And that will all weigh even filled around 1,900 pounds, which I think my 3-point can do 2,400.
So there's a shelf that you can mount a sprayer to?
They're already on there for extra weight, basically, is what they're built for.
What's there?
It's a open shelf, like flat open shelf space.
Okay.
In between, one is on the front, so where your actual gangs are going in to part the soil for the no-till, and one is on the back to put more weight towards the actual. It's basically like a big wheel, but that's the mechanism that's driving the seeding.
Yeah. So how would you mount the sprayer to it?
So basically, I think it's 14 inches by 72 inches. And so what I would do is I would take like an ATV, not even like or let's say even like a quad, like a 4-wheeler sprayer. I'd mount that on the back. I'd run those wires up to the front of my tractor like normal to hook to the battery, and then I would open the gangs on the back, or the actual sprayer arms on the back.
Gotcha.
And then I would just ratchet it or drill and attach via C-clamps or something to that.
Yeah.
Again,
I've thought that many times. I mean, it would be ideal to be able to do that all at once.
But it's got an actual, see if I can find it. It's got an actual shelf on the back, which is what makes it capable of doing that. So, and again, the reason I'm picking this Tar River, no surprise, is it's $7,000 versus a Genesis or a Land Pride at $15,000 to $20,000. And I'm not looking for like yielding bushels per acre. I just want a good food plot. You know, and from an economical standpoint, and also from a travel standpoint, the problem is I can't transport my tractor on the trailer I have with like a giant drill. Just won't work. It's too heavy. It's too long. This sits very tight to the back, kind of like a Furminator or the like, to where you can basically put in. See, there's that. That's the back shelf.
Huh.
And then there's one of those on the front as well for weight.
What is that on the back?
That is the wheel mechanism. So when that's hitting the ground and turning, that's what's running the seed cups.
Okay.
Yep. So it's mechanical.
Yep. I'm with you. Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, definitely seems like you could mount something to the top of that.
I would think so. You don't want something super heavy. But you know, if you had even if you had a 30-gallon sprayer on there, I mean, you get 2 acres done with a 30-gallon sprayer.
Sure.
And if the whole thing for what we're doing is, and I'm sure a lot of people listen to this who plant food plots. Think about spraying and nuking the plot, disking the plot, walking and broadcasting or whatever you do, some sort of fertilizer and stuff, or deer grow. Like, think of the amount of time that you spend to do 1 acre of food plot with all of those actions.
Yeah, it's a ton of work.
Versus, hypothetically, or let's even take the deer grow aspect of this. What if I was going through and drilling, right? No-till drill, and then on the back sprayer, that was Gly.
And plot start.
I can't mix it
too. Not possible, but
yeah,
that'd be best case scenario.
You know,
if you could do one pass, if you could go out with a like literally just go to any field in any condition and drill and Gly and plot start it all in the same go.
I know.
You'd have to go back and spread fertilizer too, but that'd be it.
Yeah. So I mean, the way I'll probably do it is I'll either nuke it first, then come back with the drill and plot start, or I'll do it all together and then I'll come out afterwards and hit it with plot start. Hit everything with plot start. So I'm essentially still having to do 2 passes.
How does the plot start work with like standing vegetation or like?
It's fine as long as at some point you want rain to wash it down into the soil.
Yeah. What you're trying to plan for your seed anyways.
Exactly. So, you know, in the glide part is can't mix it in the same tank because the two bind together. So essentially it offsets the plot start's power and it offsets the Gly's power as well.
Yeah.
So you don't get a kill. Even if you spray them.
Sucks. I've realized over time, at one point I was like, well, why would you ever want to mix the two? But
yeah.
You know,
time efficiency.
Yeah.
Now, if you're going through like, let's say in the summertime, once it's established with beans or Roundup Ready corn, I'll put Plot Boost in the same tank as my Gly and let it eat.
Sure.
Yeah. So I'm just trying to figure out, because I mean, again, I've never had to plan at this scale ever in my life.
Yeah.
So I'm just trying to think of what's the most time effective way to do it. And it's going to start with clover in March. And I'm also going to try. See, I need to nuke it when some of those grasses are starting to come alive, right? Which will probably be mid to late March. I need to nuke it, and then I'm going to try to get my switch in the ground as soon as I can after that nuke, because you do want some cold temperatures to crack that switchgrass seed.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So if you plant it too late, you don't get the cold temperatures that will help crack that seed and allow germination, which happens a lot for people. They'll plant it too late. You don't get that. That's why a lot of people will actually frost seed it.
Yeah.
So even though you don't get as good a seed soil contact, the cold hardiness of it will crack that seed and allow that germination to happen in the spring.
In a perfect world, would you have gone and tried to spray in October?
Yes.
And then drill now?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. And probably come back with, God, I don't know. What's the, I don't remember what it is. There's a chemical you can spray that won't affect the switch, but it'll nuke everything else. I forget what it's called.
I don't know.
So I may
a broadleaf selective. I mean,
yeah, broadleaf but just compare with the other grass.
Yeah, sure.
I can't remember what I'm blanking on it, but
well, dude, I'm excited to see how the switch goes for you. I mean, I've seen it. I've seen successful stands, and but it's never done.
I mean, if it's gonna work, this property will do it. At one point we talked about drilling it directly into the standing warm season grass that I have, and I read enough stuff to say this stuff isn't really benefiting you. Just get rid of it and drill in your switch.
I'd agree.
And it's hard to do it because, I mean, it does from an outsider's standpoint. It's like, man, that's 4 foot tall. Like, I can see deer, but like ultimately, those deer are very exposed in that.
Sure.
You know, and so I'm just going to get rid of it all.
I do think feathering some of your edge there where you're planting switch
absolutely.
could be huge.
Yeah, I mean, I could drop a lot of trees right
It's going
there.
to hurt you from a break standpoint. Like if you're wanting to burn that switch off at some point, you'll have to probably do that inside of the woods now.
Sure.
Go with a leaf blower instead of like a clean line on your edge. But you'll probably have a lot of bedding right in there.
Oh, I would agree. Yeah. I mean, anywhere you can create edge, which is why I've kind of gone back and said, I'm going to make some of these, whether it's a quarter acre or what, have some of these old field stands kind of in there. Create some browse, but also just have some more edge from a bedding standpoint.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, that's the big piece.
No trees, no pine trees.
Planning? I thought about it.
Yeah.
I probably won't do it in the first couple years. I'll see how the switch and how the old field comes together. But I thought about putting some cedars or something in some of that bedding area as well. Again, the problem is if I'm going to burn 6 foot switch, those cedars are toast. If I planted them. So, I mean, that's where that's where the old field is nice because I want to set that back every 5 or 7 years anyways. Doesn't matter. So, and I wouldn't be surprised at some point in that big backfield if I end up doing some more bedding in that too. And because that's a large field. It's if you measure it, it says like 7 acres, but it's really about 13. And so I've thought about going into that and, potentially adding some bedding pieces into it too. But for right now, it's just I want to put as much food as possible on this property just to see what shows. Yeah. I have no idea. I could see the same deer that I saw this year. I highly doubt it. I'm sure I'm going to bring in a ton of deer from surrounding areas. And then I really got to work on the timber stand stuff because, again, 75% of this property is big timber.
Yep.
And I also got to get a survey because I don't really know where my property lines are. Those are not accurate to what you see there. Like these ones on the south drop way down further.
Seems like you should be able to outsource most of the timber stuff. Like, can you get somebody to come in, write a plan, give you some money, and then hire the crew to do it? Like
that's exactly what I'm going to do. Yeah.
And then in the meantime, you can be planting.
Yep. Yeah, and you just got to pick and choose your battle.
Switches first?
Switch and clover. So at the very least, I'll put about an acre of clover in that far back field, and that may be even just for turkey hunting or something for right now.
Yep.
And then maybe a half acre up front. We'll see what happens here.
You do those at the same time then?
Switch and clover?
Yeah.
Yes.
Go glide everything and then drill into it?
Yep.
Are you going to drill the clover or just broadcast it?
I don't know yet. I might try it. I might try to drill it.
I've never heard of drilling clover.
Yeah, you can. Oh, it's just like drilling brassica. So if I'm going to end up drilling brassica in the summer, I might as well, as a test run. But we'll see. I mean, I kind of like just broadcast. What I'll probably do is I'll probably drill it, and then I probably will still just broadcast real light over top to fill in the gaps.
Yeah.
Or do that in the fall. And that'll be. I don't know if we'll get to the TSI and stuff this year. I got to get all that plans and stuff. It's going to be switch, old field, and food this year. But it's weird because the lines are off. But I mean, that property is deceivingly big. Like it's a large property.
Yeah.
It's 275 acres by deed. So
nice that you have some tillable to work with.
Yeah, it'll change how I usually hunt a lot. Because again,
Careful.
my other ones don't.
Might fall in love.
I know, right? Well, this one I'm okay with. I'll keep this one for a long time. The Ohio one, I'm going to do the same with the Ohio. I'm going to have one of the forestry guys come out, write a plan, talk about cuts and timber out there. That one I'm not as attached, like in terms of making some significant cuts out there to really improve some of the timber and everything. Like I don't care on Ohio. This one I just want to be careful with and not do anything that's going to leave me, holding the bag basically at the end of the 15, 20 years from now.
Get a good place to get fertilizer?
Co-op. Yep, right down the road.
Are you going to do bags of fertilizer or do you have a...
I do think
25 acres of food is.
Yeah, I do think that I could get a cart, a buggy.
They rent them out.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
and pull behind
that's
on
the
that.
way to do it. They pull easy. You can just put it right on the back of your truck and pull it out to the property.
Yep, and that's what I'll probably do on some of these. Like again, pretty easy access to get to the places that I'm planting. Some of these.
Are you going to lime anything?
I need to pull. I haven't pulled soil samples yet, and typically I'm not. Not that I'm not a soil sample guy, but I don't really. I know what Deer Grow can do from a neutralization side in terms of how it's improving the health of the soil. So I don't pay as much of attention to it. I might just because I've never really planted corn. I've had beans and I've planted successful beans in the past.
So just Deer Grow.
Yep. I probably will just pull it to note what it looks like. If anything, maybe where I put the corn minus those screens, I might lime a little bit there. And if I do, it'll probably be pelletized. I know it's more expensive, but I'm just not going to buy tons of ag lime. I'm against that.
Well, that's what those spreaders are for.
I know. I'm just against tons of ag lime because it's not going to work this year.
Right.
If I put it on right now, it will not work this year.
Right.
And again, from a food plot standpoint, most of us are not proactive enough to put it out the year before for next year.
Sure. But it lasts, 2 to 5 years?
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah. And so does pelletized lime. It's just more expensive.
Okay.
So between the pelletized lime and plot start, that's all I'll use.
Because you follow UFC at all?
Uh-huh.
Whenever people mention soil samples, it's sounds like something a nerd or a virgin would do. He's like, nothing wrong with being a nerd or a virgin.
Oh, shit.
Yeah. I did soil samples once.
Yeah. I've pulled them before. I don't know. And again, it is good to know. Here's the thing. First of all, lime costs have gone up substantially. Fertilizer costs are through the roof. Tractor diesel costs are through the roof. Yeah. All of these things have increased to the point. If you're a farmer and you're trying to produce a yield, I get it. Makes complete sense. It's your livelihood. It's your business. I'm a food plotter who just wants to grow food for deer. I don't care if my soil's 7.0. I don't give a shit.
Well, it's the same principle. It's just your livelihood doesn't depend on it. Something you can kind of get away with.
I've had some of the best looking behind the house. That brassica plot I planted last year was astronomically good. I couldn't believe how well that grew. Soil's 5.2. Right? But I just Deer Growed the shit out of it.
Astronomically good.
Astronomically good. Yeah, and it's just you have to understand that. So pH, people get messed up on that. pH is not a tangible thing, right? It's an indicator. Right. It's not like I can say, "Yep, here's pH." That's not what it is.
Sure.
So pH indicates there's an imbalance in the soil, which is what's going to restrict the plant from pulling nutrients. The reason we try to create healthier soil with a product even like Deer Grow is because healthier soils are able to translate those that communication and those nutrient pass-throughs in a more efficient manner, thus the plant's being able to extract that from the soil. Mm-hmm. So you can have a low pH and still have a healthy soil that is able to have plants that absorb nutrients that eventually pass to deer, turkey, other wildlife. People just have gotten so hung up on this thing where it's if I have low pH, it's well, yeah, but the pH of the beach is 7. You can't go and grow corn on the beach. There's no nutrients in it. Right? It's 7, it's neutral, but there's no nutrients in the soil.
Right.
So if anything from a soil test, I pay attention to the lack of nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium, and calcium, which plot start is a big adding factor of. So if those 4 things, if I'm looking at nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium, and calcium from a soil sample, I ignore my pH often, and I focus on those. If I'm lacking in phosphorus or potassium, I'm going to add it to there. If I'm lacking in calcium, plot start's going to take that. Most of the time, it's nitrogen.
It's a direct readout, right? Doesn't the pH
direct
level typically indicates how much lime gets prescribed, and then the NPKs are direct readouts from your soil, and those are the 3 numbers on a fertilizer bag.
And your pH is saying you need this much lime because it's trying to neutralize that soil. The more balanced the soil is, the less waste happens in terms of soil nutrients being bound up.
And that's the calcium aspect, right?
Calcium, it's the neutralization or the acidity of the soil.
Calcium is 1
Calcium is a
that does
piece of
that.
factor. So like when you add ag lime in there, it's usually like calcium carbonate, right? The carbonate is what actually is doing neutralization. So if you look at deer grow,
Same stuff you put on roads to keep it from freezing, right?
correct, in most cases, or calcium chloride, which is what derived from a deer grow, part of the deer grow plot start blends. If you think about how it works, like deer grow is not, there's chemical and there's biological and there's physical aspects of a soil, right? None of us can really change the physical aspect of our soil. It's like, it's clay based, it's sandy, it's silty, whatever. So you've got the chemical side, which we've always tried to change. For the reason we put nitrogen down is to chemically change the soil. The biological side is the piece that people have somewhat forgotten, right? That's when we talk about organic matter and topsoil and things like that. And that all comes from the amount of microbes in the in the soil that are going to process those nutrients. What deer grow does is it does do some chemical modification of the soil, but it focuses on the biological aspect. We enhance the biological aspect of the soil so that the soil is healthier, thus the plants growing from that soil have more nutrients available to them to pull out. So it's not saying that you shouldn't chemically alter your soil because, if you have got no potassium in your soil, you need potassium, you have to add it. It's not going to come from anywhere else. But the healthier the soil is, the more likely that you're going to have those nutrients available. The organic matter is going to be there. Everything you need to grow whatever you're planting is going to be there and better for it. I think that we have focused very highly on the chemical aspect of the soil for too long, to where we've kind of neglected the biological side. And eventually, the reason we need more lime or we need more nutrients or whatever is because we just chemically modified these soils. The biological aspect is kind of doing that in a natural way for you. And so that's what I think is going to create healthier soils long time. That doesn't mean you're not going to ever not need fertilizer or lime, but
Well, manure is the other big one that people add.
Huge,
that helps them with
because
the
that is the
aspect.
biological aspect of it.
Yeah.
It's just the same with mushroom manure, cattle manure, chicken litter. Back when I don't even know if they're around, but back when Grant was pushing antler dirt, it's chicken litter.
Is it?
Yeah, it's chicken litter. So that is a biological additive to the soil, to modify it over time.
I saw Grant yesterday.
Did you?
He was given a
Seminar at the Eastern Sports and Outdoors Show.
Whole food plots.
There you go. Howdy holes. That's where I think we often overthink food plots way too much. The fact is we want a green food source or grain or whatever it is to be there. It's not that hard. Yeah. Most of the seed varieties will grow on your truck seat.
Yeah.
So I think that
well, there's some things that can go wrong that will screw you. Like, a lot of people...
weather's number one.
Weeds.
Oh, weeds high. Yeah, if you don't nuke that, per what we were just talking about, if you don't nuke that, those grasses and weeds choke it out, you won't have a food plot.
So there's little things, like the timing of getting your glyphosate down and your planting method. All those things are, we maybe take them for granted because we've, been failing at it and trying to learn from it for 10, 15 years.
Mm-hmm. But
those things are important.
If you also look at where we're at, this is in north central Kentucky. I have silty soil, which is usually pretty good. It's not as good as the soil where you're at, but it's good enough, right? Versus even here in Pennsylvania, I'm on rocks and ferns. Like, it is shit for soil.
Rocks and ferns.
But I can still grow a brassica plot. Versus the guys who are in the South listening to this are all probably saying, yeah, I got red clay. This shit doesn't grow on this stuff, right? And so you have to keep in check with where you're trying to grow and what you're trying to do. But oftentimes, just for the way it is and how we are as kind of food plotters, I don't have time to plan this stuff out years in advance, right? I'm going out, I'm drilling it, I'm killing it, and I'm spraying it with deer grow and maybe adding some fertilizer, and I'm out. And
especially when it's 4.5 hours away, it's like, dude, it's tough to get to these places sometimes, and it takes a whole day, if not. That's where it's it's challenging to like there's some guys that promote like spraying multiple times a year, and which I get might be the way to do it, but it's like, man, it's hard enough for us to get there
I do think
a few times before the season.
I do think it's interesting. Like, I heard a lot of people talk about it this last year. You had it, as did I, in some spots. We got a tremendous amount of rain, to the point where I think a lot of our plots failed because the weeds and grasses literally, like, it didn't matter that you nuked them. You would have had to nuke it again.
Yeah. Even the farm, it's because that rain is turning at fresh soil and releasing that
exposing.
seed bed constantly. Yep. Even the farmers' fields, I'm like, looks like weedy.
Yeah, and so, I mean, I think that I do think that proper timing of spraying and killing prior to planting will get you through the season, but there will always be factors like that affect it. Or, you turned it, you planted it, we didn't get any rain, and essentially that plot just doesn't grow. Mm-hmm. There will always be factors out of your control. So, that's why I think having a strategy like this strategy that we just went through could completely change based on what the weather's like in March or what the weather's like in August when I come back. All my brassica plots, if we don't have any rain, may all turn into cereal plots. I don't know. Right. It's you just have to be able to kind of pivot around it. But what I do know, and again, I hope once a switch establishes and I don't have to do that screening of the corn rows anymore, like, I still will have a significant amount of money in this property every year planning. But what does 25 acres of food do to a property every year? We talked about it last year or last podcast. I think that ultimately food in a property like this is the most critical factor. There's plenty of cover. If I left these as just shitty pasture fields, I would have deer. I'd still be able to hunt deer, especially in acorn years. But by creating food, you have the opportunity to suck in a lot of deer that you probably would have never seen. And probably have more consistent opportunities at harvesting those deer.
What would a timber harvest look like on this property right now?
So there's still some really good oak. So this entire southwest section here is mostly oak with some intermixed, hickory and stuff like that. The one that I'm not sure of is the giant section, which is we call this like Sugar Camp Hollow. This big bottom here is, it doesn't appear that it's been harvested in the last 15 years, probably, maybe 20 years ago. And there's some pretty good oak through there, but it's also spotty timber in some places. So I don't know what that would look like. I don't know if there'd be a ton of value in it. I do think by opening up the canopy and removing a bunch of those trees, it would get gnarly thick.
Well, from a value standpoint, like if you brought a forestry consultant in and said, "Hey, I want to do an aggressive gut on this place,"
I would find it hard to believe there's more than $150,000 in timber on it right now.
Yep.
And that's just because
that's not a clear cut. That's just if you did a
hard select. Yep.
Yeah. Would you consider doing it?
Yes. Yeah. I would probably do it. I probably wouldn't cut anything on this south, though. That's fairly manageable from my end. But that big hollow, I would, for sure.
That's what I would do. Dude, I'd get
and I would pay for, not at 50, but 40% of what I paid for the property back in my pocket.
Right.
So,
I'll be able to pay for some of these projects you got, and
potential acquisitions,
expedite a lot of the bedding stuff you're talking about too.
Yep. And you could see these kind of two pieces that are out on their own here. Yep. I'm going to sell both of those to neighbors. They've already expressed interest. I just got to survey them out. One's 6 acres, one's 8 or 9 acres.
These two.
Yep.
Okay.
So I'm going to cut those.
Not the smoking pipe.
No, I'm up in the air on that. This neighbor probably would be interested in buying that. But I also kind of like that holler there. And if I could get one of these people up on the northeast to give me access, then that would give me another spot to get back in there.
Yep.
So I'm not quite yet ready to turn that. Like I said, I do have a piece down here that's not surveyed out. And then there's this 40 acres in between, which is almost landlocked. That I'll probably, if I end up selling these other pieces, I'll probably use that to purchase that one. And just try to make this thing whole. But the hard part in these areas, and a lot of rural counties struggle, but especially these mountainous areas, is these surveys are all like old landmark space. Like this property line that's like squiggly line drawn terribly is trying to follow a cliff line, which literally says get to this point, follow the cliff line the entire way around the property and go back to the start. And it's like, what?
Yeah.
How's that even possible? That's what, and I've asked the survey guys, because I mean, it's a lot of money to survey this thing. It's like, how are you guys even going to use that? Like, versus like, could I just go out there and really interpret the lines better for myself? And I don't really have a clear answer on that. That's no knock to survey guys, because they're really good at what they do, but I don't know how they could read these deeds and say, yep, this is the property line.
Yeah. Zoom out even more, Nick.
Big timber.
Yeah.
All around. Big timber.
It's cool, man. You're right on the edge of that transition stuff.
Most of that property to the north, that's all National Forest property.
Okay.
As is that stuff to the northwest, and as is this stuff to the west. This is all National Forest around it. And then this is that private kind of section. And we're one of the first farms off of the transition.
Yep. It's like an awesome piece.
Yeah, I mean, high expectations for it. This is East Central Kentucky, so it's not like I'm in Western Kentucky where they're producing 190-inch giants and stuff like that.
Yeah.
There's always rumors. I've seen some. I mean, that lease that we have is, 16 minutes to the west, and I mean, there's a 160-inch 4-year-old on that.
You got a picture of a really good one on this place this year, didn't you?
Yeah, probably high 50s. High 50s,
That's a
11.
Big deer, man. High 50s
as a 4-year-old.
Yeah.
That was one of the only. I mean, I got a lot of 3-year-olds and stuff, but the one thing that I don't know, and I try not to lean into it too hard this year, is again, even in late November, no food. I mean, frankly, I'm surprised I saw any bucks on the property. There's no food besides some browse. And I didn't really put corn out there. I didn't really bait it hard or anything. And I'm sure my neighbors are.
I guess that's the other question is, are you going to do any feeders down there?
So I have I've got a couple boss bucks. I bought some 1,200 pounders because I wanted it. Again, I don't get down
4
there.
hours away, yeah. You fill it and
yeah. And so I thought about throwing one up in that far back here.
Yep. By the cabin.
By the cabin.
Yep.
Mainly, if I take the kids out, if anybody hunts out of the cabin, it'd probably be them. But throw that out in the woods, have visual to this clover and eventually the brassica field. I don't think I can see the soybean. It's kind of over the ridge. But that would be the place that I would put it and kind of keep it.
Yep.
So yeah, I probably will. I don't know. My hope is some of these green beans and stuff keep these bucks around early for velvet season. That's not to say that I won't throw a corn pal somewhere on there. I don't really know what the pressure is like around it from a hunting standpoint either. Yeah. I have no idea.
Yep.
I was out there a lot during the last part of rifle season, which would have been that Thanksgiving time frame. I didn't hear any shots. I didn't see anybody hunting anywhere. So I don't know. I mean, I'm sure there is. There's definitely people hunting in this stuff, but
yeah,
it's just big country.
Yeah.
And that's presents its own challenges. It's steep in some places. It's got a lot of terrain, but it also has a lot of opportunity for those leeward ridge bedding areas, and being able to be really strategic about stand setups and stuff. And as much as I love hunting out of stands, I mean, the majority of these spots will end up being, that quad pod or box blind, just because of the way that the wind is and access is.
Sure.
And that doesn't mean that I won't have any stands. I'll start to lay them in here as I understand the deer's pattern. The deer patterns are going to change 100% when the food goes in.
Yeah.
Like what I see now is not going to be any representation as it's going to be in September when the season opens.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, man, it's going to change.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to change. World of opportunities here, though.
Yeah, it'll be cool, and that doesn't. I still have my place. 8 miles away, and as of right now, I'm still leasing the neighbor's place. So I've got other opportunities, but I feel good about being able to grow a couple mature bucks.
I think you're gonna have your hands full too
on this.
Getting this whole thing implemented.
Yeah, but this is the core. I mean, this is the place where those other places are tough to hunt. I mean, hell, I've had a ton of bucks on those properties, and I think I've passed one. I passed one buck in Kentucky in the last 3 years. You don't see them in these big mountains.
Yeah.
And it's not like I have food plots, and I have a couple food plots, but I mean, you just don't see the deer. They just don't move. And if they do, they're cruising ridges and eating acorns and browse. And so this will be the first spot down there that I really have an opportunity, I think, to pattern some deer. But I think the timber cuts will be critical at some point. The food's going to be super critical. Access is key. Access in and access out.
Yep.
And that doesn't mean that at some point I don't end up planting that 1 acre plot or something. It seems like I'm going to have to forfeit that this year just until I know how these deer move.
You got a gate on this property?
I'm going to up in the front. Yeah. Yep. I'm going to have a gate up in the front, and then I'm hoping with this switch and stuff planted, that'll deter people from trying to drive through the field or whatever else. I might even put a fence
somebody
in
down
there.
there being like, yeah, I just drove that public road back. Somebody planted a bunch of food plots around.
That's exactly what's going to happen. Yeah. So, yeah, it's shed hunting coming up. Looking at that. Looking at planning.
Survive. Get through February.
Yeah. I know there's a lot of people here that really like turkey hunting, and that's not kind of our thing, but
I'll turkey hunt probably once.
Yeah. Oh, I'll shoot some turkey. There's a lot of turkey on this property. Like it'll be cool to go out and hunt. I'll tell you the other thing I got. And I don't know, have you ever hunted coyotes on your place?
Mm-hmm.
Like hunted them or just trapped them?
Hunted them.
Really?
Yeah. I've shot quite a few of them.
Have you?
Yeah.
So I've started to see...
Shot some fox, too.
Not a ton, but I mean, I've had 3 or 4 out here, some in my Ohio place. So I got a new Fox Pro call. I've got an AR set up with a thermal now from one of our Stone Road clients. And I think I'm going to start laying the hammer down on a few of these places.
Sure.
I do think I was bored when we were at the show. I was reading some research. There's some significant impacts, not only on, goes back to that social stress aspect of we don't know what stress causes in these bucks in terms of their body and antler responses. And, there's obviously overpopulation and stuff, but from a coyote side, especially this time of year, right? That's why we're bringing it up. But that February time frame and early March before green up, man, these bucks are just, their bodies look like shit. They are at their wits' end in terms of trying to just survive to green up. And I think that you get into some of these areas where there's 3, 4, 5 coyotes in there harassing these deer. I'm not saying they're going to take down your buck necessarily, but it's enough that it's affecting them. And so before we get to fawning season as well, because when I plant this, I'll be able to sustain a lot more deer than this currently has.
Sure.
So I'm going to go in and I'm going to try here in the next 6 weeks to really try to make it a goal to shoot 2 or 3 off of that property.
Yeah.
And maybe 1 or 2 off of my Ohio place. I've got even a few behind my house in Pennsylvania. So, I don't necessarily, I'm just looking for something to keep me entertained.
Yeah.
To drive me through and make it feel like I'm also doing something that's going to progress the properties. It's not easy. Obviously, it's not like I'm just going to go out, set up a call, and expect to kill a coyote. Like, there's still a strategy around it. But it'd be nice to remove a few off of the property and feel like you're at least trying to make it a little bit better.
Heck yeah, man. Do it.
So, cool. That's it. That's all I got.
Yep, me too.
But kind of blanked out. But I guess last note, just because saw quite a few. Appreciate anybody that came up to us at Great American Outdoor Show and said hi. I know I missed a few people. We may have missed some people even opening week.
Mm-hmm.
I think one of the days they said there were like 33,000 people through, like on Saturday or something, and we weren't there yet. But appreciate all the guys who did stop by and said hi and just kind of shot the shit with us. And we appreciate everybody's support, and we'll look forward to doing this. I know one request I've seen, because you don't read them, is people really wanting to hear I bought a farm back in. So we need to strategery that one a bit.
Yep.
And maybe we'll bring you another set of series here on that. But we're getting there.
We'll come around right at the cusp of this year. It's going to be a good year.
We've been on the road a lot. I mean, that transparently, like you're listening to this on the 14th. We filmed this on the 13th. And next week you'll hear it on whatever, the 21st. We will film it on the 20th. I mean, first of all, we're not going to let you down. We're going to make sure we shoot one. But I mean, we're just on the road a lot with trade shows and stuff. And if you're listening to this on the 14th, I'm going to be walking around at NWTF on Thursday and maybe a little bit on Friday morning. So if you see me, grab me, say hi. We can talk deer and not turkeys. So
I'll be here working, showing properties.
That's right.
Grinding.
Okay. We will catch y'all next week.
See ya.
Take me